How USA became a superpower. What did they do so special to become so powerful? Let's try to figure it out in today's video. This chart shows the history of the last 2,000 years, the contribution of each country to the global GDP. You'd see that before the 1800s, India and China were the two biggest superpowers in the world. Most of the trade and economic activities revolved around India and China, and it remains so for 1,800 years. But in the last 100 years only, the United States started gaining dominance, and today has grown so much that America is one of the strongest countries in the world. You know, between 1900 and 1950. Do you remember what happened during these 50 years? There were two world wars. And where did these two world wars take place? In Europe. France, Germany, UK, Spain, and Italy, they were all fighting among themselves in the two world wars. And the USA was sitting on the sidelines, even though the USA participated in the world wars. But they only supplied weapons to these countries. But wars weren't on the USA's territory. Numerous American soldiers died in the world wars, but economically, the USA wasn't adversely affected. In fact, the USA was the only country to have profited from the world wars. They sold so many weapons to Germany, France, and other European countries that they made it tons of profit. And the countries like the UK, Germany, and France were totally devastated. It wasn't that the USA had tried to take undue advantage of all the devastation. It was merely a matter of chance that the USA was making profits during the world wars. When the wars started in the European countries, the Europeans felt that their currencies would lose their values and that their economies would crash. And so to protect their wealth, they decided to buy the US dollars, because the US dollar was a stable currency. And America was a very stable country during the war. So many countries bought US dollars, and the value of the US dollar skyrocketed. In 1944, when World War II was at its last stage, 44 Allied countries came together and decided to keep their currencies stable, to link their currencies to the US dollar. And the US dollar would be linked to gold. And obviously, the Allied countries won World War, and the US dollar became the international currency. After this, organizations like the International Monetary Fund and the United Nations were established, wherein America played a very important role. And after this, the same organization called the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade was founded in 1947 by 23 countries. These countries decided in order to boost their economic growth, they would reduce the trade barriers among them. Meaning, instead of promoting indigenous products and nationalism, they would promote international trade and globalization. This organization was later renamed as WTO in 1995. After 1950, America and the Soviet Union emerged as the two main superpowers, and here began the Cold War. The war between the USA and the Soviet Union is known as the Cold War. This was an ideological war between communism and capitalism, but instead of fighting directly, they had a proxy war, meaning instead of fighting in their own countries, they started fighting in other countries. Now in the countries where the USA thought that Soviet Union were gaining traction, they would directly attack on those countries' government, sometimes by monetarily funding the opposition, sometimes by funding terrorist rebel groups, and sometimes even directly assassinating revolutionaries. Now, because of interfering in the internal politics of so many countries, several countries became directly dependent on the USA. And so America became even more powerful. This is the reason why today there are more than 700 American military bases in more than 70 countries. To achieve all this during the Cold War, America had to spend a lot of money on its military. And that's why America's military power is the best in the world today. But things didn't stop here. In 1949, America formed the NATO alliance with the European countries to stop the influence of the Soviet Union. This NATO alliance still exists. Because of this, America has always been cooperative with the West European countries. And most of the West European countries were heavily dependent on America for so many years, because their own economies were destroyed. Now, during the Cold War, the world map looked like this. Nearly every country had teamed up with either America or with the Soviet Union, so it wasn't surprising when nearly all the countries had chosen to team up with either of the countries. Both the countries grew much more powerful. Both the countries became superpowers. After the 1990s, when the Soviet Union was disintegrated, there remained, obviously, only one superpower in the world. That was America. All these reasons were geopolitical, but there were other internal reasons as well because of which America could become such a powerful superpower. One such internal reason is that the American policies always attracted talent. They attracted good immigrants to their country. There are so many examples of this, and these reasons are valid even today. Think about it. How many such Indians became successful after going to America? Albert Einstein, a German, became popular after going to America. Elon Musk, a South African, came to America and became so successful. America's policies and its culture encourages talent, promotes innovation, and all of these were the reasons that made America so powerful. So that's all from my side, guys. If you learned something valuable, then please don't forget to hit the subscribe button.